Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday. I appreciate your patience this morning as the beautiful, wonderful studios was giving me just a little bit of a little bit of the annoying moment of the week at the beginning of the week. So, hope that you're doing well. Hope that you're having yourself a fantastic day. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and that you spent it with those that you love and obviously had a good time. Hopefully you stayed safe and stayed well. The weather's getting better here in central and upstate New York. It's getting a little more clearer. It's getting a little more warmer. So I hope that you are enjoying that and making the most of it here in central New York or wherever you are. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for watching the show and being a part of it. You're here on not only on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, but you're also on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. And of course, you are with us on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT and on WakeUpCallDT.com. So however you're listening to the show and watching the show, I want to thank you so much for that. I want to thank all my guests in the Florida in Focus series. I hope you had a great time watching those. We laughed through all of them. We talked about some serious stuff. We talked about some things that were going on in the sports world, but we all connected it to the people that we were talking to. And to me, I had a great time with Bob Casulo, Jason Lucas, Mike Sofka, Papa Joe, and Shackelford. And I want to thank them for their questions, putting me on the hot seat, giving me some fun with that, and spreading a lot of love. You know, I really do appreciate all of that time. And I'm very thankful for the connection that we have to the great state of Florida and how that has become a second home of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and really Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. So as much as Central and Upstate New York is our first home and where I was born, the second home of the show is the state of Florida. So for Bob Casulo, Jason Lucas, Mike Sofka, Papa Joe, Dale Shackelford, and everybody that I know down in the great state of Florida, which there are so many wonderful people down there, I want to thank you all from the Sunshine State, from the bottom of my heart, for giving us a Florida in Focus series week to remember. And something that I greatly appreciate. You can go back and watch any of those videos on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT. You can also watch them on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. And I'll be sure to rebroadcast them on our social media as well. I'll add them into Twitter at CallDT so you can see them there. And I'll put some notes on Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT so that you'll have them there for sure. So for all of that, for the Florida in Focus series, I want to say thank you. I hope you've had a great weekend, like I was saying before. I hope that you have taken the time to appreciate things that matter to you. I hope you're taking the time to maybe get some rest, and maybe go out there and go on an adventure. This past week for me, I can't believe that I'm sitting back here in the studio after everything that's happened in this past week. And I've learned so much, I've done so much, and it really has meant a lot to me. And, life is a beautiful thing. It's a thing that, if you don't pay attention to it, it can kind of fly right by you. And I think it's important to really take in the moments. There's a lot that I got to do in this past week that made me really stop and think and say, geez, did I really get to do all that, or was it just one big dream? And the things that I got to accomplish and the things that I got to do, and the big kid in me that got to really, live my life in such a big way this week has been really, really special. And so, I'm going to take those memories with me. I'm going to take that time. I hope you've had a great weekend, like I was saying before. Something beautiful. You have taken the time to. That's what we're meant to do. The big kid in me that got to really, I want to thank the people live that have joined me on my trail in such a big way this week. I want to thank everybody that's been there. And so, ton of laughs. I'm going to take those memories with me. I'm going to take a lot of time with me, and I'm going to turn it into. It's something that's really been amazing. Because I want to shout out Rudy. I want to shout out Evan. I want to shout out Matt. I want to shout out Mom and Dad. I want to give a shout out to Papa Joe, Mary, Joey, Kayla, Lily, and great meeting you both. I want to give a massive shout out to Gracie and Carly and to Jason and Kristen. I want to give a shout out to all the, workers I got to meet. Big shout out to Mike as well, Mr. Sofka. To all the workers that I got to meet, to the people I got to be around, to Ariana for that awesome, surprise that I got on my little, time away and whatever. So thank you for that. Shout out to you. Really to Eric as well, and Kelsey. I want to give you all a shout out. So, it's really been an amazing, you know, last week here. From the time that, before the Florida in Focus series to now, I really don't have words. And I'll find a way to get them. I will. But, I do want to give my shout outs to those of you that have joined me on the trip. To Lisa, I want to give you a shout out too. And I mean, there are people out there during this really, really, really difficult time for the world that are working their behinds off, and they're having fun, and they're smiling, and they're saying hello. And, I told you before on the show that, like, somebody just coming up to you and saying hi can really go a long way. And I could tell you beyond any doubt in my mind, I got to experience that. And I got to be around people that did those things, that just did, like, really nice things in the moment. Shout out to Tammy. Shout out to Demetrius. Had some great conversations this past week. So, to me, I really, really, I want you to sit here and think about what you have in your life. Do you appreciate the blessings that you have? Do they matter to you? And speaking of blessings, we got the man on the show right now, and I was going to get into it here for a second, but he's popped into the show. But speaking of blessings, I want to give a big shout out to Mike Kitts and Mike Kitts Jr. as the Kitts family is taking over Wake Up Call today, and we're making it official, is what I'm calling it. So we have a former NCAA official who is now a coordinator of officiating, and then we have his son who is an official here with the world of college basketball. And I am so pleased and so grateful that my first show back after the Florida in Focus series is connected and focusing on the Kitts family, who I respect and appreciate so much, Mike Kitts and Mike Kitts Jr. So let's bring on Pops first. Mr. Kitts, how we doing?
Good, Dan. Nice to have you on. Nice to be on, and appreciate you calling me and asking me to do something today.
Yeah, and Mike, I was just talking about my past week and unexpected blessings and really cool things that happen in life, and just finding the positive in everything. And then here you pop in, and you're all about positivity and trying to see the glass half full. So what can you say to that note?
Well, I assign games for the Metro Atlantic Conference, and we lead the nation in Division I in most schedule changes, 161 changes. So it's been a very interesting year for me and the officials and the schools and the coaches and the players. So it's been a unique year, and hopefully it gets better and get back to normal next year. But it's the Horizon League hasn't had as much changes as a Metro Atlantic, but it's been a very different year, to say the least.
Yeah, and you bringing that up, that this has been such a strange year, such a unique year, a year that has really called us to really figure out who we are as people and how we're going to respond to adversity, because adversity has struck numerous times. What can you say about, before we get into basketball deeper, about the world in general? You had coronavirus. You went
trying
through
to see
all
the
that.
glass
You
half
scared
full,
the
so
heck
what
out
can
of
you say
me when this happened in the beginning here. So, let's go back to that moment. I know I had you on the air right after everything happened, but now that hindsight's 2020, and with the year and the theme in general, how did you get through it? How did you find a way to navigate having this virus, having this unique situation, and living in a world that really didn't know what to do with it?
I was in a situation, again, like nobody knew what to do with it or how to even cope with it. And, me getting sick, I think I was the third patient out in Dagger County to get sick and get in the hospital. And it was just a year where when I was in there, you really didn't know what was going to happen. You had no visitors. People really didn't know what was going on with it. Even right to this day, I finally got an appointment to get my vaccine shot April 7th at the State Fairgrounds in Syracuse. But, it's just a difficult year for everybody, from, the coaches and especially the players. I feel for at the schools that, like I know that Iona had a situation where they had 51 days off. Canisius had 47 days. These kids, all they want to do is get back and play basketball and go to school. And It's just so many variables going on as far as when they're going to play, when they're not going to play. For example, Iona's done it until the tournament starts next week in Atlantic City. The Metro Atlantic starts April 8th through the 13th in Atlantic City. Horizon League starts tomorrow night. There's 4 games in that, and they got the semifinals and the finals in Indianapolis on March 8th and 9th. But it's just been a strange year, and he's just got to be flexible. And at the beginning, the other coaches were talking to me saying, "Mike, all we want to do is just play. The kids play." As we got more into the season, they got worse than they have been when it's a normal year. So nothing changes with the coaches. They want to win, and I know their jobs. Time of year, and they're complaining, and the referees, I think, are getting to the point they just want to get the season over with. So that's what I'm dealing with right now.
And like you said, the MAC, the MAAC, that you're the coordinator of officiating for, they've gone through, like you said, what is it, 161 schedule changes. I mean, how do you navigate through? I mean, this is such weird waters and such a strange time in the history of mankind. How do you navigate that, and how do you deal with, I mean, we're not talking about, I think 16 changes would be hard, but we're talking about over 160 different changes. How have you seen this season go and adjust to it? And I mean, at what point do you kind of just see the crazy as being the normal because you're basically changing schedules all the time?
Yeah, you know what, I learned through the months, first couple of months, that I'm making all these changes on Monday, and then something comes out. This referee was contact tracing. He's out for 14 days. This referee tested positive. He's out for 4. So, I mean, between the teams schedules being changed around, I got to find referees because we try to keep the pool smaller to have more control of the referees and the testing and the protocols. So between the schedule changes and referee changes, and the other thing, referees are independent contractors, and if they don't referee, they don't get paid. So, I mean, I have a list of guys in contact tracing. I have a list of guys who tested positive. Now in a 90-day window, I don't have to test anymore. So I had more lists between referees and schedule changes, and it was just unbelievable.
Speaking here with Mike Kitts, coordinator of officiating and a longtime official inside of NCAA college basketball. Mike, for you, did you ever get to a point where you have, between the list of contact tracing and the list of officials that tested positive, did you ever get to a point where you were concerned that you were essentially going to run out of options for officials?
I had a situation last week in the Horizon League. I had a referee test positive, so he was out for 14 days. And we had referees that weren't in the cadence protocol, so I had to really scramble to call Rick Boyages, who assigns in Mid-American, and Jim Haney, America East, to flip-flop some guys so I could have coverage just to have 3 guys on a game. So it's just expect the unexpected when you're assigning basketball games this year.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you having to go through this is not a normal year. This is not a normal thing. This is a very unique situation to have. It's not like officials have, gotten in trouble for something or they didn't do what they were supposed to do. I mean, this is essentially like people are following the rules. They're just, in a situation where, in contact tracing, I think that's the thing that really makes it even worse when it comes to jobs, is that you could not be sick, you could feel totally fine, but because you were in a room with somebody or around this person for a certain amount of minutes, whatever it may be. I mean, at the beginning of all this, my dad had to quarantine for 2 weeks because his friend passed away, and he went to the house to visit the wife of his friend who passed away. He's close to both of them. And so one of the guys in the room that also went up to visit, he was someone that could have potentially been exposed, and my dad never got anything. But because he was in a room with this guy trying to pay respects to someone, to the widow of someone who passed away, my dad's sitting here going, I just lost one of my closest friends, and now I have to sit in a house for 14 days. I had to deliver him like food on his doorstep, ring the doorbell and walk away. I mean, I think the contact tracing part of it is something that really affects us all, because if one person in a room is doing that, then, all of a sudden, Mike, you got to quarantine, I got to quarantine, 50 other people have to do it, and now you're affecting lives on and on and on, and if they have to contact trace and they have to quarantine, then, you go home to your families, and then what do you do with that? So, I see people running into a lot of snags with contact tracing, that if you're in a room close enough to somebody, it throws a lot more off than just one person having to go home.
Yeah, we got a situation, a few of them this year with contact tracing, and that the referee had to sit out 14 days because that was a protocol for the Metro Atlantic and Horizon leagues as far as 14 days. Some schools went to 10 days when the CDC came out with 10 days. But, the two leagues that I have stayed at 14 days, and a lot of referees didn't think it was fair because they're playing on weekends. They're playing Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. And usually in the 14 days, it would include 2 weekends. So if they don't referee the first weekend, which is 2 games at $4,000, they don't referee the next weekend at 2 games at $4,000, they lose $8,000.
Yeah.
So if they don't referee, they don't get paid. So I kept a list of guys who lost games. So if I got a schedule change, I could put them in a game to make up for the ones they lost. I did that too. So that was another list I had. So it's just it's one list after another, and trying to keep everybody happy. And and the coaches, I had situations this year with coaches. They were asking me where these certain guys are. The Big Ten this year had a special contract. He picked 16 guys that all they did was referee Big Ten games. They couldn't referee any other leagues. They had to do Big Ten games. So those 16 guys who I normally have to use during the two leagues that I have, Metro Atlantic, weren't available this year with coaches. So that has to be where these certain guys are. The Big Ten this year had a special contract too, and explain that to 16 guys that all they did was referee Big Ten games. I just couldn't referee any other leagues. They had to do Big Ten games.
And that's the thing too, Mike, is that you're still doing your normal job, right? I mean, you're still trying to function as a coordinator of officiating, having gone through Corona, having had it, having been hospitalized, and navigating the normal conversations that you have with coaches, and complaints that you have about calls, and complaints you have about why is this official not on my game. Now you're dealing with all this other stuff. Mike, you've been doing this for so long, and like I said, you're a positive person, you're a great guy, you've always been good to me. How did you decide to pirate this ship, so to speak, to jump in these waters again, and to keep kind of, doing what you can to get toward the shore, knowing that you were going to have all of the same issues that you would typically have as being a coordinator of officiating, on top of the fact that you were getting over being sick, and that you would have to deal with, more questions and more complaints and more confusion. What made you want to jump in the ship again?
The biggest thing I have is I like to see the young guys do well officiating. We have a good group of young officials that are really doing well. 2 or 3 or 4 of them are going to get a shot in Big Ten games next. They would have had a shot in it this year, but because of the COVID, that set them back a year. But my biggest reward out of this whole thing is seeing these young guys mature, get better, and we got, a lot of good young guys that are going to be knocking on the door, getting these big games coming down the next 2 or 3 years, and that's my biggest takeaway from assigning games. I just love seeing those guys do well, and that's what I like doing the best.
Yeah, and speaking here with Mike Hitz, coordinator of officiating. Mike, for people that don't know, tell everybody what you do now, because you oversee a lot of different things and a lot of different teams, and you've grown through the officiating tree, so to speak, to rise to this place of a coordinator of officiating. Let people know exactly every place that you have a hand in.
Right now I got the Metro Atlantic with 11 teams, and we deal with like 142 officials. I also have the Horizon League, schools like Oakland, Wright State, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Green Bay. And I also have 34 Division III schools, which they're starting to play as we speak right now between the Empire 8, the SUNYAC, Skyline, and the NEAC. And I got University of Rochester Division III's home schedule. So, I'm involved in a lot. And I have an opportunity to look at these young officials coming up and kind of put them in the right position to either, I think, succeed in Division One, or if I got to be honest with them, I say to them, this is the highest you're going to get. You're going to be Division Three referee. If you want to stay in, but do it to the best of your ability. So, I mean, I'm involved in a lot, and I like it, and it's very rewarding to me, and to see those guys move up the ladder.
You know, and like you said, having your hand in so many different things and being able to oversee so many different officials, what excites you about that? Because, you know, we see the officials at the games, and like you've told me before, if you're a good official, they won't remember your name when you walk out the door, so to speak. You know, they won't, you know, they see you come in, they see you go out, but, you know, if you called the game as best as you could and you really didn't become the game, then, you know, you leave without them even knowing who was there. To know these names and to know these people and to have done this for so long, you know, seeing these guys do well and seeing them develop and grow and blossom, what excites you about the job beyond that for you? Like, I mean, you could have easily been an official for as long as you were and then walked away. What made you want to oversee officials, and what made you want to stay in the game and continue to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form, as opposed to just retiring and stepping away?
I don't know. I always thought, you know, being involved in basketball, I mean, that's all my daughter tells me, that's all you talk about is basketball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just something that I like doing and got involved in it. When I was 24 years old, I started refereeing, and I refereed until I was 64. So that's 40 years of my life that I had something to do with basketball, whether the high school level, Division III level, or the Division I level. So it's something that, you know, I get a lot of pleasure out of doing something good. And, you know, this job's patience, because I don't have a lot of patience, but dealing with these coaches. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to you right now. I'm getting a phone call from Carm Masiello from Siena, and but I know which I'll call him after I get off the phone with him to see what he wants. But other than that, that's, you know, what I'm doing right now with the basketball, and I'm going to keep doing it until I don't feel like I'm not having a good time anymore.
What makes you have a good, I mean, do you feel like you're going to keep rocking and rolling with this thing, you know, into the next few years here? I mean, Mike, I know you to be connected to it. I know you to be talking with me about it. I know I could send you a play and say, what do you see? And we would be on, you know, we would be breaking it down. I know that when we've gotten to sit and do a show live at the Wildcat together and, you know, just like have a drink and just talk about things back and forth, that off the air, you know, you were talking to me about different things that you've seen and things that you've been through. I mean, you're such a student of the game and a teacher of the game that you've really been around it so much. So to go off of what your daughter said, that, you know, you talk about basketball all the time, I would imagine that, you know, at least from my perspective, you're still hungry in it, which I appreciate and respect so much, because I tell people all the time, you find that you find the difference very quickly between if you love something or if you think you love something. And you must really love this, because it's been a part of decades of your life. It's been such a big piece of who you are, that I think, you know, you've really proven that you love this, and that love has, to me, it's either stayed consistent or it's gotten stronger over the years.
You know, I think it's gotten stronger. I mean, just for, you know, with the teams playing on Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, and even this week, the Metro Atlantic ends up on Thursday, Friday this week for the regular season. You know, I'm sitting there on a weekend on a Friday night I got 2 TVs going, I got an iPad going, I got my laptop going. I got 4 games going on at once.
Yeah.
And I'm watching each game, you know, and to see if there's something I should pick up that I should know about, you know. And the referees know enough to call me if there's an incident or an issue in the game that I should be given a heads up on, that I'm going to get a phone call from the coach, you know. So I'm always involved, even watching stuff, talking to coaches, talking to officials, and I think me talking to coaches, me talking to officials makes everybody better, because I'm just giving a perspective of what the referees are looking for and why they're calling something or why they're not calling something.
Yeah, you know, and for you, what are some of the, you know, beyond the Corona things that have gone on and whatnot that have made this year so unique and different, of the typical phone call? what are you getting as far as a certain call or a certain way that something's been done? What are you kind of fielding the most of this season?
The biggest thing I'm getting a call about is what I'm seeing, even announcers. I mean, I watched a couple games last night and they screw it up. They said there was so much contact on this play. What's happening, we're getting offense-initiated contact. What I mean is the offensive player, the dribbler, has the ball. A legal defender is 2 feet on the floor facing the offensive player. He can move laterally, he can move backwards, he can move obliquely to obtain legal guarding position. Yeah. And we got the offensive player going into, there's a lot of contact created by the offensive player, and they're saying, I can't believe they don't call a foul on that. And the defense is not doing anything wrong. He's legal, and the offense is creating all the contact. So it's either a no call or it could be an offensive foul on the dribbling into the defensive player. That's the biggest call this year in college basketball. And the other one is a verticality when a kid walks into a kid with his arm straight up in the air, and he looks at you like you got two heads. Why is that a foul? He wasn't legal because he walked into him. If he's there initially with his hands up and the guy jumps into him, it's either a no call or an offensive foul. And I hear so many announcers just getting the rules screwed up every night. I mean, it's amazing.
And when you hear announcers talk about it, I mean, I've seen, and I don't know, I mean, you could tell me better than anybody, but growing up around basketball my entire life, I mean, from when I was, I don't even know, like a baby to now, and playing basketball and doing that. I mean, for me, I would tell you from my perspective that I feel like announcers have gotten more comfortable calling out the refs publicly than I've seen before. I mean, I know that I'm used to like maybe once, maybe twice in a broadcast. Usually like once I would hear them go, oh, that was a bad call. But not just in basketball. In general now, I feel like I hear announcers go, yeah, that's a terrible call. Yeah, go back and look at that. That wasn't even right. That wasn't even close to being right. Do you feel that announcers in the world we live in today have become more comfortable calling out officials?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got an example, Dan Dockage, Jay Billis. Jay, when he first came on the scene, was really good as far as what he said about officiating. Now he's an expert in officiating, and I just think, he gets his raw. He can sit there with a monitor in front of him, and Dawkins can sit there with a monitor in front of him, and they can replay the thing. Referees don't have that luxury. Referees have to make a split-second decision based on what they think they see or what's going to happen. And it's unbelievable that people can, second-hand referees and say, well, geez, that wasn't right. But, yeah, it's easy to sit there and play it back when you got the monitor in front of you. And I'm seeing it more and more nowadays. I think in the future, it's going to be very, very difficult for referees. I think this year it's hard for the referees. I think going down the road 6, 8, 9 years from now, it's going to be impossible for referees to ref a game. They're getting more criticized every year, and it's getting worse every year, like you just said.
Well, and when you say it's going to get more difficult, I mean, do you think that it's going to be because the announcers are essentially going to, kind of put them up on like basically make it like a Salem witch trial, just put them out there? I mean, do you feel that that's what's going to, in these next few years make it so difficult because the fans that typically complain are going to hear the announcers tell them like, you're exactly right, all of this is wrong? I mean, what's going to progressively make it more difficult for officials in your opinion?
Social media. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm even the Iowa Michigan game last week that was on. They had a couple plays that were iffy, but I mean, I'm looking on the social media. They're killing the referees. Between Facebook and all this other stuff that they're doing, and I just see it, and you're getting so criticized for doing a job that's almost impossible to referee. And everybody can sit there and play second-hand referee, and it just, I think social media is just killing referees.
And you look at the fact that obviously that wasn't around back in the day. It wasn't around for a lot of the time that you were officiating. The evolution of social media, the evolution of technology to bring in social media, it was supposed to bring us together. In my mind, it was supposed to make the world smaller. It was supposed to connect us to the actors and actresses that we love, to the athletes that we love, to the writers and the illustrators that we love, to our family that's thousands of miles away. I mean, my family watches and listens from Spain like 5 hours ahead of time to Wake Up Call in the morning. So shout out to my family if you're watching this morning. I appreciate it. But, it was supposed to make the world a better place by bringing us together. What it ended up doing was essentially, in a way, to some people, made them feel like everything was a town hall discussion, even the cereal that you're having for breakfast, and everybody's got an opinion. And people can hide because you're not going to meet these people probably ever in your life. So, this gave people an opportunity to essentially have what we would call in the past liquid courage by having, the courage to go on to this, go onto a database, type on a computer, and never have to actually face the person that you're attacking. How did we go wrong with social media, Mike? Because to me, it was supposed to make it better. It was supposed to make it easier. It was supposed to bring us together. And for whatever reason along the way, just like any other creation in life, you can use anything for good and anything for bad. And when people say to me, anything, Dan, really? I say, yeah, think of a toothpick. You use it to get something out of your teeth. You use it to pick up an hors d'oeuvre. You can also poke somebody's eye out with it. So no matter what you look at in life, anything that's created can have a positive effect or a negative effect depending on how you use it. Social media was meant to be a positive to me, Mike. Where did we go wrong?
I just think when people have the avenue to state their opinion, and we get a lot of opinions based on, officials or games and how they're officiated, it's just not a good situation right now because, it's easy to pound your chest and say what you think about this official or that game and how it's called. But like I said earlier, it's so hard to officiate these games. I mean, I'm watching the Big Ten game last night, Ohio State and Iowa. I mean, I'm watching this. I don't think I could referee these games now the way they're being played and how we're supposed to call them. And, I mean, if you went literally how you're supposed to call them and call the absolutes, there wouldn't be any players left on the bench to finish the game. Yeah. So I think you still have to have a feel for the game. You have to have a feel for what's going on and what they're trying to run on offense, what they're trying to do on defense. So as a referee, you got to pick up on this. You can't just go out there and just say, okay, who's the best players? How many fouls has he got? If he fouls out, everybody in place should be able to see the fouls are the fourth and fifth. So there's a lot of variables that go into refereeing that the average fan has no clue what's going on as far as how the game should be officiated and how they're calling the game.
Speaking here with Mike Hitz this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. There is the coordinator of officiating inside of the MAC as well as the Horizon and helping out beyond that as well. Mike, you give us such a unique approach to the sport because, a lot of times people don't get to hear from officials. When we're in a normal year, I guess I can call it that, we sit down when I go out to the ACC. I sit down at their event at the Operation Basketball, and and Brian Kersey would speak with us about different things in officiating and what to do and how to understand what's going on and different rules that have been made or questions. Do you think that that's essentially what we need? Do you think that announcers and media people in general need to have meetings with coordinators of officiating to understand before they open their mouth and try to judge something they don't know? I mean, do you feel that there should be more of that? And I understand in the world now, I mean, maybe we'd have to do it over a Zoom call, but should there be official, announcer, media in general, conversations where we're asking questions, they're giving answers, and we're going back and forth instead of having this world where announcers and media people think that they're officials?
Yeah, it's funny you brought this up because I made a suggestion to the Metro Atlantic Conference last week. Up until this year, I go around to each school and give a little clinic before the season begins on rules, points of emphasis from the NCAA. I asked the league if they could include the people that do either the radio or the TV at the schools because they got to be informed better than what they're saying on TV. As I brought up earlier about these people, the announcers. I mean, that's one of my pet peeves. I'm going to get involved with next year. Hopefully, it's a normal year. I can get out there and get to the schools. And when I have my clinic at each school, I want the schools to invite either the radio people or the TV people based on what school has. And I want to give them a clinic. And they should be at these clinics because their knowledge when they're talking on TV, people think they're right, and half the time they're wrong in what they're saying.
You know, and I think
having this
I think that's a great idea because I've learned a lot from it, and I know that it's available to us. I know that when we've had it for like the ACC for football and basketball, that's we've been able to go in if we want to, but it's not required, and not everybody goes. There might be 200 people there for the commissioner, and there might be 20 people there for the official. To speak to the coordinator of officiating. And I think that, that's where there's a lack and that's where there's an issue because, hearing from the commissioner is great. But on a day-to-day, week-to-week, hour-to-hour basis, the official is who we're talking about. How the game is being called is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the commissioner when we're watching Syracuse-Boston College. So, the reality of it all is I feel like the media has to have a very close relationship with officiating because there's a giant fan base out there, right? There's fans out there for every team. And there's fans that are going to call a game fairly, right? I love my team, but that was a good call. And I feel like that's a minority. The majority is going to say if it's called against my team, it's wrong. And somewhere within all of this, there has to be voices of reason. Now, the officials are not going to talk to you because they don't have press conferences and they're not going to sit there and answer every question. They'd be there for 9 hours a game. So if the officials don't really have a voice, they're just trying to officiate. And the fans, more often than not, are always going to go for their team and never against it. Then the media really has to be the bridge of saying to the fans, that's crazy. I know you love your team, but this is not the rule. Or, yes, you're exactly right based on this. So I feel like the media has a right to be a bridge, but oftentimes, the media can accentuate and amplify the voice of the fans, and then it feels like everybody's against the officials.
Yeah, I mean, it's this perfect example of what I was talking about earlier about announcers. When they're saying something on TV, the people listening to them actually think that's the rule or that's what's right. As far as a call is either good call or bad call.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, I've had coaches who disagree with referees and they just can't get it. I actually go to their schools and sit down with them and go through a whole film and explain to them why this was called, why it wasn't called, and use the verbiage that a referee would use as far as a particular call, whether it's a second or third on a flag charge in the yard or not, and sit down with them. These are things I think, even when I go to a whole film and talk to the coaches, just the head coach and I sitting in the room breaking the film down, I found that to be very helpful as far as me getting across as far as what referees are calling, why they're calling it, and why they're not calling it.
Hey, and I think that's great, that you've gone to the school and do that, but it's a lot of work for you. And if you went to every single school, that's a lot of work on you, Mike. So I think having these mandatory, schools coming together, the coaches coming together and sitting and doing this, be it a Zoom call, be it whatever. But I feel like whatever we have to do right now to get the information out there, because, as an official, you are one of the most criticized. You're criticized more than the Kardashians, Mike. I mean, in my opinion. So, I mean, and let me ask you this, because my parents always told me you got to have thick skin. And from sitting as a broadcaster, I thought in my mind, people are attacking coaches, officials, players. They're not going to attack broadcasters. Well, little did I know that in the world of social media, if you put yourself in the world of entertainment, and that's where we are, when you are a broadcaster, you are an announcer, you are an official, you're a coach, you're a player, you're in the world of entertainment, you're in a spotlight, right? I have a show, somebody thinks they could do it better. You're an official, somebody thinks they could do it better. He's a coach, she's a coach, they think they could do it better. So, living in the world that we live in, there's a lot of scrutiny for doing it, and when you were officiating on the court, did you ever at one point want to take the microphone and say, listen, this is what we saw, this is why we did it? Because officials don't usually have a voice. So did you ever feel like officials should have a place, should have a voice, should have a rebuttal? I mean, there is something put in place against coaches that if they talk about officials after a game, they get fined, but the officials don't get to talk after a game. Do you think that's right? Should there be a voice? What do you think about the sense of the officials officiate, everybody talks about it, but the officials never get to say anything about it?
I think there comes a time where, professionalism as a referee, I think you should be able to speak your piece as far as, especially if you get a tough situation. And, a perfect example, Mike was refereeing the other day, and he had a play where the referee called an offensive foul, and it was a secondary defender in the yard, so Mike had to come in and tell the referee that it wasn't the right call, and he had to change it. Instead of an offensive foul, it was a blocking foul based on where the secondary defender was. And, that's a play that I think should be talked about and explained, because I don't think the average announcer or the average fan have any idea who the primary defender was on the play, who the secondary defender was, and why it's a foul on secondary defender in the yard because he didn't leave his feet. There's a lot to digest what I just told you there, but I see that, people don't understand it, and I think it should be explained to them. And the announcers have no idea how to explain what I just said to you. If I said that to an announcer, they think I'm talking Chinese or something. But they have no idea. And for me to explain it the way I can, because I know the rules, and I know how the verbiage to use, the average announcer or the average layperson has no idea how to explain that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, they talk about understanding something from your perspective. You were taught in it. You know how to do it. Mike, in the world we live in today, to kind of bring it back to social media here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, there's so many opinions out there, and when you were reffing, it wasn't as prevalent, right? You would hear from the fans during the game. How have you dealt with refs? You talk about young refs, and just officials in general, but you talk about the young guys too, that this is all they know, right? This is all they know. All they know is social media, being connected to their job. What has been your advice to them about how to deal with the fact that they're not just hearing it during a game, they're hearing it before the game, during the game, after the game, 3 days after the game, 7 weeks after the game, a year after the game? How have you addressed with officials, especially guys that this is all that they've ever known, how to deal with the fact that fans' opinions follow them home if they let it?
I don't deal with social media. I post nothing. I don't want people to know my business. I could care less what they're posting. And I tell the referees, I had a situation 4 or 5 months ago when all this stuff was coming out about Black Lives Matter, and I had a referee post something that he liked what somebody else posted, okay? And it wasn't what he posted, the like thing.
All they know is social.
Some minority referees saw it, and they got upset and called me up. Stuff was coming out about Black Lives Matter, and I had a referee post something between these. He liked minority referees and this individual in a, I'm not saying what city it was, but who the individuals were. But there's a situation where I told the guy, you didn't even post it, but you posted what you liked something that this guy posted. See the trouble it caused you? You got 10, 12 minority referees that don't want to referee with you anymore because of what you posted. And I had to go and straighten that out. That's is another part of my job, which really isn't my job, but I'm trying to make things better for everybody. And I had to go and deal with this situation between the 12 or 13 minority referees and this other referee who posted this thing. So this is an example of social media where people don't need to know your business. Just don't look at it. Keep your mouth shut and keep your opinions to yourself.
Yeah, and the thing is, I tell people all the time, if I didn't have a business and I wasn't, reaching out in that way, I'm a hermit. People see the last thing I posted was my show on Friday to my personal page on Facebook, and then the first thing this morning is my show today. Outside of wishing somebody a happy birthday or putting up a picture of a family member and saying happy birthday to them, or, getting to see my nieces and sharing a picture and saying I love them, or posting something inspirational. Outside of that, outside of inspirational stuff or a post here and there about my mom, my dad, my dog, you don't know where I'm going. You don't know what I'm doing. In my personal life, that's just not me. And I tell people, as much as I'm out there, my personal life is condensed to a few people. There's a few people that know what goes on in my personal life, and then the world thinks, well, we know everything because Dan's on social media all the time. And it's like, yeah, I'm on social media telling you what I'm doing professionally, but personally, I like that. I like that comfortability of just telling a few people, Mike, and I feel like it's a lost art that, only a few people know those like intricate things about you, because I think that that's what makes it awesome. I think that we should keep that, call somebody on a phone, see somebody in person and tell them about. I'm not one to tell everybody, like, if I'm getting married, I'm not putting it on social media and that's how you find out, Mike. I'm calling you. I'm not going to have you find out I'm having a baby because your son saw it on Twitter. That's just, and I'm highly against that. I know some families that the first time they had a kid, they told everybody that they love and then they posted it. And the second time they just didn't tell anybody and they posted it. And I was hurt by that. I was hurt that, like, I didn't know before, like, some stranger in Wyoming knew. And so, I think what I'm getting at is, I'm an old school guy, and I know that you and I connect in the world of, like, you can talk about this, that, and whatever publicly, but privately, you should always have special relationships where people actually feel valued, and they're the ones that know the things that maybe nobody knows, or maybe they know it well before other people do.
Yeah, I could care less sometimes what people, think about what I'm doing, because I know I'm doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Whether it's, with the basketball, it's just the way I am. I don't go out looking and post stuff and say what I'm doing. And I got an email I get emails all the time from fans at different schools that I assign games to and saying how bad the refereeing is and this and that, and I never respond to them. I don't take the time. I'm not doing that. I'm not going back and forth, tit for tat with some person sending me something I don't even know who he is. And most importantly, he doesn't know anything about officiating, and he's posting this stuff up on the websites, and I just don't respond to it.
And I don't think you can. And that brings me to one of our final points here before we let you go. Mike Kitts and Mike Kitts Jr. coming on the show today. We're making it official all throughout Wake Up Call this morning, starting off March 1st, with two people that I respect and a family that I have deeply appreciated over the years. Mike, for you, everything we've talked about brings me to thick skin, right? You got to have thick skin. And it was something I was getting at a little bit before. And it's that, my mom and dad said you got to have it. You got to have thick skin. You got to let things bounce off of you. And I'm not going to lie, it's not an easy thing to learn. It's not an easy thing to do. But when you get there and you genuinely know, like you said, I know I'm doing things the right way. I got that. I know that deep inside of me. So how do you establish that thick skin, and how do you keep it? Because some people don't care how many years you've been in the biz. They don't care how many games you called. They don't care that you were in championship games and Final Fours. All they care about is this one call about this one thing, and this matters. So how did you develop thick skin in your life? And maybe it went back to before you even started being an official, but where did you realize that your thick skin really came in to a point where it didn't matter what other people had to say about you? And I think it's important to note that, not just to officials that are listening, but to people in general, how important it is to have thick skin.
I just think when you're secure in your ability as a referee, which I did for 31 years, and I knew I was doing it the right way, I really didn't think what people were saying or coaches were saying. I knew that nine out of 10 times I'm going to get the play right. And, I talk to my son about that a lot, is that, you're going to have people yelling, screaming at you a lot, and you got to have this thing called selective hearing, which I was really good at that,
Yeah.
And that was one of my big things is, and I always teach, you got to know what to say, how to say, and when to say it. And that's kind of an art with referees to diffuse situations. You get all these situations out there, and you got to be able to say something to a coach that makes sense or give them something to think about it. But the thing with the thick skin is just that I knew that I was confident in what I was doing. So if that constitutes thick skin, that's what it was. And I didn't really care what people thought because I knew I was doing it the right way.
And I can agree with that, and I can appreciate that. I have to ask you this. Mike's going to be on in a couple minutes here. You have Mike and you have Sarah, your kids. What is the best piece of advice that Mike has ever given to you?
Oh, Mike always says, Dad, sometimes you get too hyped up, and sometimes I say things that I don't think about what I'm saying, and they feel good for about 2 seconds, and I wish I didn't say it afterwards.
Yeah.
So he always says, Dad, he goes, can you be careful what you say? Especially in this day and age with everything that's going on. And that's kind of an art in this country. My daughter's sitting next to me right now. We're driving down the road, and in Florida, going over to Sarasota. I just picked her up in Orlando.
Yeah. And
my daughter's a doctor, and she's the best. So she's embarrassed I just said that to you.
What's the best piece of advice that the doctor's ever said to you?
Sarah, she's got some friends coming in tonight from into Tampa, which we're picking up. She goes, Dad, can you be normal for a couple days? Can you just be normal for a couple days? She's embarrassed I might say something. So I told her I wouldn't embarrass her for the next 4 or 5 days.
I think you're pretty normal and pretty mellow, Mike. I think you're. I've spent a lot of time around you. I think you're all right. I don't have any qualms. I mean, obviously, Sarah and Mike are going to know better than anybody, but I think it's a beautiful thing that you spend time, with your family and that you do what you can. And you got to think about it this way, Mike. As much as she's asking you to be normal for a few days, at least she's asking you to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's all good with the two of them. They're good kids, and never got any trouble and didn't cause any embarrassment. So I can't ask for anything more. So I'm happy how both of them turned out.
Best part of being a father, in your opinion?
Seeing how successful, productive person in society that the two kids have turned out to be. Mike's got a lot of upside with refereeing. He's got a great demeanor when he refs. Sarah's got my temperament sometimes, that Irish temperament. She can get upset a little bit, so I try to tell her about just calm down a little bit, and she'll go, well, Dad, you never calm down, so I can do what I want to do. So, but it's I've lucked out with 2 great kids, so no issues, man.
And coming from Mike Hitz this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, our last note, Mike, is something where we get to flip the script. I said that officials never really get the opportunity to have a voice. That's why I like having you on. That's why I like having your son on. That's why, Brian Kersey and so on and so forth. There's a lot of people that I appreciate having on the show in the officiating world because it gives you an opportunity to speak your mind. And I respect you, and I have for a very long time from the day that I met you. So I'm going to flip the script, and I'm going to give you a trio. You can ask any 3 questions to me. They could have to do with basketball. They could have to do with anything in the world. But, Mike, we've been friends for a while, and officials don't get a chance to have a voice. So I'm flipping that microphone over to you. Now I'm on the hot seat, since you're always on the hot seat as a coordinator of officiating and an official before that. You can ask me any 3 things in the world. Go ahead.
Number 1, if you had anything to do over again, is there anything that maybe you would have done differently?
Well, that is a fantastic question. I don't live with regrets. That is something that I do not do, so there's not really a lot of regret I have. I would say if I could do something differently, I would probably go back to the past. And I would tell myself, don't worry. Worry never solves anything. Worrying has never solved a problem. It just creates more. Worrying creates stress, which doesn't solve the problem, but makes you almost, it makes you unhealthy, and then it prevents you from dealing with a problem even more so because now you don't have full energy. So I would tell myself to not worry. One thing that I taught myself, and it was something I learned this past, not yesterday, but Sunday ago. I was visiting my nieces, and I was visiting my buddy, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go get a drink. So I went out to the gas station to pick up something to drink, and I just thought in my head about something that was on my mind, and I thought in my head, if it's meant to work out, nothing will stop it. If it's not meant to work out, everything will stop it. And when that notion hit me, I texted my friend, and I sent a message out to her, and I was like, I kind of just thought about this. And she goes, that's exactly right. And she goes, isn't that freeing to know that you can now live your life and be who you are? And I said, yeah, this is something that I wish I told myself years ago. So I would say don't worry. And if something's meant to work out, nothing's ever going to stop it. So really, I would have saved a lot of energy in the past if I had known that.
Okay. Who's your least favorite person you ever interviewed?
Mike Hitz. No, I'm kidding. My least favorite person I've ever interviewed, probably Antonio Cromartie. The Jets corner. He was a egomaniac at the time, and he was making fun of like the brand shirt that I was wearing, and I was sitting here like, you got 12 kids from 11 different women. I don't think my decision making is as bad as yours, but I don't know. I never really want to talk to that man ever again for the rest of my life. And I can hold on one hand of over 2,000 people that have been on the show. I can hold on one hand the couple people that were just crappy to the media. And Antonio Cromartie's probably one of the worst to deal with. But Jalen Ramsey, I never interviewed him because I didn't want to. I had no respect for him whatsoever. I love the fact that he preaches that he loves God, but he doesn't walk the walk that he talks. And he's very, very much like a kid. And when you're in the locker room with him, not in a good way, kid, he's like stomping up and down, wants everybody to pay attention to him. And so, I mean, I would say the majority of people I've never had an issue with at all, but the very few people that I can say I didn't appreciate interviewing, it had nothing to do with me or anybody else. They just had an ego. And Mike, I think you know me well enough to know that if you put me around somebody with an ego, I'm probably not having a drink with that guy.
When you deal with people like that, that's a sign of insecurity when they come across like that.
Yeah. There's
something that's not clicking right upstairs as far as being so-called quote-unquote normal person, and they're insecure.
Well, you ever meet somebody, like, I know when a like guy to guy, I know when a guy is insecure when he meets you. And like especially if you're around women, and he meets you and he talks to you or like the lady introduces you and says, this is Dan or whatever. And then after he goes, what's his name again? I always know that that's an insecure man when they shake your hand and they're like, what is it, Dave? And, and that makes me laugh so much because it takes such a small human being to do something like that. So I agree with you completely.
Okay. Who's your favorite person you ever interviewed? You can't say me.
I can't say Kits. My favorite. Well, now I want to interview Sarah because I'm going to talk to Mike. Now I need to do like a roast of Mike Kits, but we need to make that happen. So I would say that's my favorite person to interview. Oh man. I've said in the past, I've said Floyd Little. And I know my reasons, but I want to pick somebody else. So I would say my favorite person interview, really a guy that touches my heartstrings, and people saw him this past Friday when we did Florida in Focus, is got to be Dale Shackelford. I mean,
great guy.
Yeah, he kind of came into my life. We did an event together, and I asked for his number. I said, I'd love to have you on the show. And I had him on the show, and then I wanted to do this basketball show around Syracuse basketball and, pregame or postgame, and I wanted to have a co-host. And I asked Dale to be my co-host, and he said yes. And we did it for 4 years. And, he's since moved down to Florida, but we're so close. And if anybody goes back and watches that show from Friday, and I should send it to you, Mike, because it's on YouTube as well, because I know you're not on social media, but the conversation that I have with him, you can't watch that and not see that, there's genuine care from him and concern and love. And, he calls me his brother. I call him mine. And I would say that, Dale just really pulls at that. Rob Drummond, in the same respect, he pulls on those heartstrings for me, because they're two people that will publicly and privately look me in the eye and tell me, I want you to be happy. They'll call me out when they need to. They'll ask me, to be honest with myself. And I mean, they're two of the greatest human beings in the world. So I would have to give them credit, because especially if you watch the show from this past Friday, it's so real and it's so nothing to do with sports that, it's just two really, really close friends talking to each other, which is what I always intended my show to be.
If you talk to him again, tell him Mike Kitts said hello, will you please?
He's watching and listening this morning. So, Dale, if you're still out there, Kitsy just said hello to you.
Hello, Dale.
So
hopefully I'll see you somewhere down the road.
Yeah, well, and he's down in Florida now. You're down in Florida. You've been down in Florida for what, 3 weeks now? How long you been down there?
Oh, that's between me and my daughter.
I was going to say, I talked to you. You were down in Florida a week ago, and now you got a few more days. Her friends are coming in. I'm like, Kits is, I like it, though. I like it,
Yeah, it's been a good time, and don't miss the snowy weather at all. And I am flying up to the Atlantic City Sunday, and hopefully it gets warm up there a little bit, not like down here, but I'll be up there for a week and back down here to the end of March. So looking forward to it.
Well, good for you. Apparently I know who I need to call when I'm back in my Sunshine State.
Give me a call. I'll hook you up, man.
That coming from Mike Kitts. Mike Kitts Jr. coming on in just a few minutes. Mike, as always, thank you for giving us a window into the world of officiating. And more than anything, thank you for being a tremendous friend to me, to being an extension to me and my family. Thank you for inviting me to that Christmas party. Little did we know that the world would be so different after all of that. And, beyond and above all of that, thank you for being as strong as you are and fighting to get through everything you went through with Corona, because you were in my prayers. You always are. And I'm more than anything, I'm happy that I'm talking to you today after everything that went on in the fight that you had. So God's good. I know he took care of you, and I'm just happy that my friend's here to talk this morning.
Thanks so much for everything, and same to you, and hopefully my son does as good job as I did.
We'll see. I'll let you know, but thank you, Mike, and be safe and have fun in Florida, okay?
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That coming from Mike Kitts once again on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. I mean, what an awesome guy. Seriously. They don't make him better than Kitsy. I wish I spent time with him, down in the Sunshine State, but I'll get to see him soon. After all of that, appreciate you, Mike. Beyond and above all of that, thank you. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we'll be rocking and rolling with plenty more to come with Mike Kitts Jr. right after this in just a little bit on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Stay close.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, where you're listening, you're watching on Facebook Live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. So I want to thank you for being a part of that. It's all inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Cafe Kubal is the place for you to go for not only your coffee and your tea and your chais and all of the greatness, but also for their amazing desserts, their little treats that they have, their muffins, as well as their breakfast, their sandwiches, everything that they have there on site, from the chocolate bread to the chocolate banana bread to what I love, which is the chai, whether it's mint chai or pumpkin spice chai or whatever it may be. And the upstate sandwich is by far my favorite. I've grabbed it a bunch of times up to the Dome. So Cafe Kubal has been my meal heading up to cover the games. So the energy that I had for the games, some of that came from good old Cafe Kubal. So I want to show them some love and thank them. You can go and visit them at any of their locations: 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, as well as 208 North Townsend Street, all in Syracuse. And their newest location in Manlius, 343 Fayette Street, at the pinnacle when you come into Manlius and you get to see all those roads converge on that big brown building that's like that jagged building that has the stripes on it. That is your Cafe Kubal right there in Manlius. So make sure you go out and see them and show them some love. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. Listen, a lot of people like a cup of coffee. A lot of people like some tea, a little treat for themselves, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Well, at Cafe Kubal, you keep it local, and that's important to do. I know some of you are waiting in a drive-through line of a company, a corporate company and whatever, and you're used to this drive-through, you're used to going over there. Pull up, get out of the car, walk inside, meet some local people with a local company with local-made products, and show them some love. Now more than ever, it's important to walk into the Cafe Kubal locations and to simply get a cup of coffee, because a cup of coffee goes a long way. Matt Goddard and I can tell you that. So thank you to the Cafe Kubal staff, and thank you to you for going out and supporting them. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', we have coming up here in just a second, we'll have Mike Kitts Jr. You heard from Mike Kitts Sr. Mike Kitts Jr. will be joining us in just a moment where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And before he comes on, we will take a quick step aside for us to get him ready and set to go. His dad said that he set the bar high. We'll see if Mike Kitts Jr. can keep up with it right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand butter chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, where you're listening. You're watching on Facebook Live, on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and you're also watching on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. So however you're connecting with the show, thank you so much for being here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. We appreciate you so very much. With that being said, the second part of today's broadcast, as I said, I called this Wake Up Call Making It Official. We had the coordinator of officiating and former official Mike Kitts on the show. Now we have Mike Kitts Jr. here with us to speak on life as an official himself. So let's bring in Jr. here on the broadcast, who the last time I saw him, we were eating at a diner together, but not together. He was there, and I was there, and he was finishing up, and I was starting it off, and I looked down the line, and I was like, oh, that's, that Kitsy's over there hanging out. So it was good to see a familiar face, especially since they're covered all the time now. So with that being said, let's bring him in. Mike, how we doing?
Good, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I told you off the air that your dad said that he hopes you can keep up with what he just brought. So how do you feel you're going to do?
Usually he's not a tough act to follow, so I'm assuming I can do a good job here. But I didn't get to listen, so maybe he did do a good job.
Yeah, he did all right. He holds his own. He's I like Mr. Kitts. He's good stuff. So let me ask you this question, and we'll start here. Kind of bring it all. As I said here inside of MonPawsPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', having Mike Kitts and Mike Kitts Jr. on the broadcast today to truly make it official as we usher in March. We also will get to hear from two people in the world of officiating, where so more often than not we never get to hear the point of view from officials. So I thought it was important to not only have one point of view, but to have two separate points of view. Mike, you and I have spoken before, obviously, but seeing your dad go through this and the ups and downs and the ebb and flow of officiating, what made you want to be a part of it after seeing your father do it for so long?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely obviously grew up watching my dad on TV and going to his games and kind of was always around it and, was kind of just a sponge my whole life, picking up the way he watched the game. And then in college, he got me into the local high school board, which at the time I didn't really like because I was a young kid and I still wanted to play. So I kind of was iffy about it at the time. And then after college, I got an internship at the Big Ten in Chicago, working in their officiating department, cutting up film and working with their officials and, breaking down basketball games. And that's when I kind of liked it and said I want to give this a try and take it more seriously. And that's when I moved home and got into officiating and just kept working my way up.
So, your dad essentially kind of said to you, like, hey, get into this a little bit, see what you think. And in the beginning, you weren't really gung-ho about it. I mean, hindsight 2020, are you thankful that your dad kind of pushed you a little bit to give it a shot?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with it, he actually never really pushed it upon me too much. He kind of just suggested it as a kind of a side gig, and it was a good way to make a little cash in college. And honestly, just being a part of the Big Ten officiating program, I didn't really like because I was a young kid. It just so happened it was his last year wanted to play, and I was breaking down a lot of his plays and pushed it upon me too much. He kind of just suggested it as a lot of the repetition side gig video kind of triggered me to give it a try, and then I ended up really enjoying it. So I do appreciate, him at least opening the door to me because it's been a lot of fun.
And growing up and seeing, I mean, not everybody has the experience that you had, not even close to, seeing their father on television, to seeing, either one of their parents, on TV doing this and whatnot, and knowing that, their name is being mentioned, they're being shown on camera, whatever it may be. So what did you think about all of that growing up as a kid? How did you react to that?
It was kind of funny as a really young kid. I kind of I thought I had, because he was on TV so much and traveling all the time. It's funny. I thought I had a mini dad, a guy that kind of lived in a television, and we'd point him out on TV. And then, but he was doing it since I was so young that I kind of was used to the fact that he was gone and that was his job. And then as I got older, his last couple of years, I was in college. And it was cool. My friends thought it was cool. We kind of gather around the TV on nights he was on television, watch his games. And, it's just been part of my life so long that it's kind of really all I know. And I kind of looking back on it, don't realize how cool it was till, now I'm doing it. And to see at what level he did it at is really cool. And, it's just, he did it for so long. It's kind of all I know.
So how essentially, did you get to kind of connect with your dad and grow up with your dad, knowing that, he had to travel a lot and like having many dads sometimes, he's in the TV. How did you deal with that?
Well, fortunately, I mean, we talked on the phone a lot and he was really good about communicating at home, but, fortunately the job is kind of a 5-month job. So when he was done, he was home so much that eventually at the end of the summer, I was ready for him to hit the road again and have him stop yelling at me and get back to his job.
So I mean, as you grew up and got to do that, what were the things that when you had the time with your dad, what did you really want to do the most of when he was gone for almost half the year doing this, that, and whatever? Like what did you want to really get to do with him when he was around?
Yeah, I mean, so growing up, I played summer baseball. He helped coach a lot of my teams. He went to all my games, my practices. And another thing, I mean, we played a lot of golf together till this day. So we really did take advantage of that time in the summer. He was home to do those things. And like I said, we still golf and we hang out a lot in the off season. And, it's kind of the same schedule we've been on our whole life.
And golfing wise, who's the better golfer? How do you guys hang on the golf course?
Eventually, at the end of the summer, I think I got the edge on the golf game. Stop yelling. I've had it for quite some time now, but he had it probably till I was about 13 years old, and then it flipped the switch.
Okay. So how old are you now, Mike?
I'm 30. I just turned 30 in January.
Well, happy belated, first and foremost.
Thank you.
And that means that you've held the better golf game over your dad for 17 years by your math right now.
Yeah, it's. I think he's pretty discouraged at this point. He's accepted defeat, and he's starting to just enjoy the time on the golf course and be a little less competitive, which is something we've been all trying to get him to do for a while.
Well, that's the beauty is he's down in Florida, so he's got golf all around him right now. So he might be laughing a little bit at you right now because he gets to celebrate that weather while you're celebrating this weather.
I'm definitely jealous, and he might have a leg up on me the first couple weeks of golf season. But, hopefully a couple of rounds in, I can get the game going and get back to where we were.
Talk about competition here with Mike Kitts Jr. What can you tell me about, your fire? Is it similar to your dad's? Is it the same? Because he told me that him and your sister Sarah have a similar demeanor. That he tells her to calm down, and she says, "Dad, you never calm down, so I'm not going to calm down either." Where is the competition? Where is the competitiveness? Is your competitiveness like your dad's, or is he more like your sister? Or are you more like your mom? Bring me into the dynamic because I'd love to break this down a little bit more since Mike brought it up.
I definitely am competitive. I don't like to lose. But when it comes to expressing my how I feel, I do feel like I'm a little more laid back than my dad and my sister. When maybe I'm down a little bit, I don't create as much of a scene, I'd say. Okay. I'm kind of more level-headed. Maybe that's more along the lines of my mom too, but I do try not to show my anger, I guess I'd say, as much as my sister and dad might when they're a little upset. So I think I'm a little more even keel, I'd say, than they are.
Who causes a bigger scene, your sister or your father?
I guess it depends on the situation. I know my sister, she's in med school right now, and she's doing a great job, and I know nothing about the med school world, so I do imagine it is pretty stressful at times. So I do imagine why she gets upset. So, I don't know, when Sarah's got a big test, she's one of those people you kind of want to stay away from. I'm a little more laid back and kind of let her do her thing. And then, my dad, too, he's got a tough job when a million games are going on a Saturday and he's trying to watch his games, and hopefully his officials and his crews are doing a good job. You kind of just let them do their work, and hopefully their day goes well, and kind of let them be for that day until the job's done.
That coming here from Mike Kitts Jr. as we make it official here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora to start off March inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Mike Kitts and Mike Kitts Jr. joining us today. You heard from the coordinator of officiating. Now you're hearing from Mike Kitts Jr., the official. Mike, your father had said to me that as a coordinator of officiating, just in the MAC itself, that he has had over 160 schedule changes.
Yeah.
He saw it as a coordinator of officiating. As an official, what have you gone through this season?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year for us from the beginning of logistically trying to figure out, how these games are going to go, how we're going to test to get in the gyms. So I mean, for example, I had a game at University of Buffalo on a Thursday, and we're ready to go in the locker room, ready to take the floor, and 30 minutes before tip, one of the administrators comes in and says someone from the away team tested positive for COVID. So we just pack up our bags and head home. It's just been a lot of being ready to be adjustable, and sometimes you'll be a day out of your game and your game will get canceled, or you'll get moved to another location. So it's just been a very fluid season, and it's just been, you got to be ready to make adjustments, and it's just, you never know what's going to happen.
No, and that's been the thing. I mean, have you always been someone who could ad-lib, or were you taught during this past year how to do it? Because some people like to fly by the seat of their, like, I know that I function somewhere in the middle of planning and ad-libbing. Like, for an example, I love Disney. So when I go down to Disney, I'll have in my head, planning-wise, I want to go to this park. I want to, I'll say I want to go to this park. I want to make sure I get on these 2 rides. And beyond that, it's like, what time I eat, don't really care. Do I have to get on this ride by noon? No. So I'm not like anal in the sense of like, I got to do everything to the like I've seen people plan out their vacations where it's a giant like Excel spreadsheet that has highlighters on it for like pink is for rides and blue is for food and all that stuff, and when's Timmy gonna take a nap and whatever. So I mean, I know I'm just dealing with me when I go, but for me, when I look at stuff like that, like I function somewhere in between planning, like this is what I want to do today, but then having the ad-libbing functionality of I fly by the seat of my pants, and it makes every day exciting because I don't know which ride I'm going to do first. I kind of attack life knowing that life is not always going to go your way. So how do you attack it? Are you somebody that can ad-lib, or did this year really kind of make you stop and say, okay, geez, I can't plan everything out?
I'd say I'm somewhat similar to what you explained. I'm not a guy to, plan out my schedule and have it, by the minute, hour, of exactly what I'm
Excel,
doing.
I can't plan everything out.
But I do like to have my points of what I got to do during the week and kind of chip away at those things. But I'd say I'm more of a fly by the seat of my pants type of guy. For example, I mean, when my girlfriend and I go out to dinner, when we get in the car, I still have no idea where we're going. I kind of just like to get in the car and 3 minutes in, figure out where we're going. So I'd say I'm similar to you, as where I kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but I do like to have like an overall arching idea of what the week has planned ahead. So this year with refereeing hasn't been, too stressful to me because I can roll with the punches, but I got to imagine guys who like to know what they're doing every day has been a little bit more, difficult on them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that you brought up there, speaking with Mike Hitz Jr. on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. But before I go to any of the other points that you just brought up, I got to ask you, you get in the car, I'm just like you, I'm in the driver's seat, where am I going to dinner? I don't know. Now, I'm a single man right now, so I'm speaking of I can't get in trouble today, only you can. But so I would get in the car, and I've dealt with a lot of different personalities on the other side, but more often than not, I've learned that when a woman tells you, I don't care where we go, she cares where we go. And so how is your girlfriend, and how do you deal with it? Because I've been in 2 scenarios, one of them being I'm driving around going, just pick a place. Like, pick any place. At this point, McDonald's. I don't care. Like, just pick a place. I don't care if we eat underneath the bridge on 690. Like, just pick a place. And so there's that part that I've been in. And then there's the, babe, I don't care. Do you. Go wherever you want to go. And then you're like, you really going to pick here? So So I know I'm very much like you. I don't care where I go to eat more often than not. If I've had, a certain food 3 days in a row, I probably don't want it. But beyond that, I don't care where I eat. I don't care where it is. I don't care if I have to drive a little bit. I'm very easygoing when it comes to food. I will find something. So I've gotten accustomed to telling people, you are more picky than I am. You pick the place and let me know. So how is your girlfriend, and what is a typical, bring me into a typical car ride with Mike Kitts Jr. and the lady.
Well, I mean, usually it starts off with we're deciding that we're going to go out to eat, and then it kind of goes from there. But this is kind of how we've been dating for over 3 years now, and it's kind of been the same story ever since. She's not the greatest at making decisions, so she wants me to make the decision most of the time. So, I mean, she's used to the protocol at this point. What I kind of do in my head is I kind of either narrow it down to what side of town I want to go on or what kind of food. And as I narrow that down, we just show up somewhere, and she's not picky either, so she's pretty cool with wherever I decide to go, as long as she's really into the vibe of a restaurant. She calls it vibey. This place is vibey, and if the vibe's good, then the night's good. So that's kind of how it goes.
So are you really good at finding vibey places for her?
I guess so. I mean, we're in a small city, so the options are pretty limited. We got our favorite spots and things of that sort. And she likes otro. She's into Mexican. I like Mexican as well. But we like to try to hit up different spots and try everything out. So, yeah, it's fun.
I definitely can appreciate it. I'm going to use that now. I'm going to use the vibey. Like that's now going to
line. That's her line. So I can't take credit for it.
Yeah, so we'll give her some credit. But you talk about ad-libbing and being able to figure things out. How many times this season has your schedule changed?
I mean, at this point, I've definitely lost count. For a while, like I was keeping track of, game reschedules or game postpones or cancels. I mean, at this point, it's got to be close to 30 of reschedule, postpone, cancellations. It's at the point where it was kind of frustrating at first, and I kind of had a tally on it. But now it just kind of is what it is, and I've kind of just learned to deal with it and kind of not worry about it too much.
And seeing that navigate, like you said, you originally kept track, and at this point, you've lost track of it. What did it? I mean, you and I talk about being able to kind of fly by the seat of our pants, but what did this season teach you? Are you happy that you kind of had that going in, that you had that ability? I mean, do you feel like you had kind of unknowingly prepared yourself for such a weird schedule, or did you feel like it kind of at times really got to you?
I guess it never really got to me. On one aspect, I was kind of lucky that, knock on wood, they had a contact tracing, protocol for referees, where if you were caught up in, the contact tracing, you would have to sit out 10 to 14 days, depending on what leagues you were working in. And fortunately, like I said, knock on wood, that didn't really affect me too much. But I mean, talking to guys this year, now that we've made it this far in the season, the bar was set so low as to how good this season would go, that basically anything that happened was above our expectation. So kind of like everybody said, we've exceeded expectations. I think people think we've made it a lot further than what we thought. I mean, we're going to have an
schedule,
NCAA
or
tournament.
Did you feel like it kind of at times really got to you?
I don't know if a lot of people thought that would actually happen. So I think people across the board think we've made it farther than we actually would.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, for me, Corona hit this country, from my point of view, it hit on March 9th of 2020. And I say that because that was the day I was supposed to go to the ACC tournament. I chose not to go. I had a gut feeling, and I was right. And I went to a lot of people in my inner circle and I asked their advice, and it was kind of split, like, Dan, don't go, or Dan, you might be overreacting. At the end of it all, it was the right decision. But now here, a year later, I can't believe it's been a year. And a year later, we're talking about having a tournament. What can you say as an official this last year has done with you, mentally, physically, emotionally? What has this last year done from like March 9th to now? And secondly, what do you think about the fact that there is going to be a tournament and it's all going to be carried in one state at 5 different locations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the year of, COVID, and, now it's crazy to think it has been a year basically since since all the shutdowns occurred. It just kind of taught you to roll with the punches and kind of have patience and kind of take with what you're given. I mean, you can't really predict things in this time, and you kind of just got to take it day by day. And then, like you said, to make it all the way a year later, and that we're actually going to have this NCAA tournament, I think it's great for obviously the student athletes. And, it's great. People need something to watch. I think people really love the NCAA tournament. And then to have it in one location in Indy is it's a great place for sports. I know I read an article that they're going to let 25% people in the arenas, which I think will be pretty cool. And it'll be cool to watch. I mean, it'll all be in one place. I think the television schedule is going to be pretty good this year, where not a lot of games are going to be going on at the same time. So, people will get to watch. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully, everybody that gets picked for the tournament can play, and they don't, lose their chance to play with, a positive test. So I'm curious to see really how that works out if a team gets in, and what are the chances that all the teams that get picked actually get to play. That's going to be something to watch.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point, because the tournament has to go on right in a certain way, and you got to have your first 4, and then you have to have, I think the weird thing too is that Dayton, for the first time in a very long, I mean, Dayton's not getting the first 4. Dayton, Ohio. What'd you say?
That's huge for that city. That's a big event.
Yeah, and I got to go there when, St. Bonaventure and Syracuse and Radford and so on and so forth were there. And, it was a great experience. And I think, I feel sad for the people of Dayton, because it's not talked about enough how cool that is, how they get to always usher in the tournament every year.
Yep.
And so we look at, you look at that, but you got to think about like the first 4, then, so you have 68 teams. The thought that none of those teams are going to test positive or have contact tracing is, to me, it's crazy to think it's not going to happen. So what do you do? Right. So what do you do when you have, after the first 4, you got 16 games on a Thursday, 16 games on a Friday, right? And you're trying to get ready and you're trying to play these games and whatever. And what if 5 of the first 16 can't play? How do you go off? How do you advance people? What do you do? Is there a forfeiture? If this happens and you got to keep the 10 to 14 days, does the tournament start in March and end middle of April? I mean, the question is, Syracuse makes the tournament and they got to have contact tracing, and they're supposed to play Ohio State, and everybody else plays the round of 64, but Ohio State doesn't play the game. Does Ohio State advance, or do they wait for Syracuse? And by the time Ohio State advances, that stops everybody else from advancing. So do the other games keep playing? And how long do you wait? Because you could have teams that are in the Sweet 16, Elite 8 before Syracuse can play. So, you know what I mean? It's like, if one team gets sick, it can throw off the entire bracket.
Yeah, and so, I got to imagine what they're doing with the NCAA isn't a logistical nightmare. It's got so much planning, and protocol has to be put in place. And I've been doing my best to kind of keep up with how they're going to run the tournament, and, what are some new news that's going on with it. I'm sure I'm not as up to date as what's going on, but I have a tough time believing that, they're going to be waiting for games to be played, especially with the TV schedule probably already set. I think I read something like there could potentially be forfeits, or I don't know if a team tests positive leading up to it. Is there like a team that was first 4 out now going to get in? I'm really curious to see how it all goes, and like we said, I have a tough time believing that all 68 teams are going to go play this tournament and not one of them's going to run into a COVID issue. It's just hard to fathom after all the cancellations we've had this year.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just the reality of, and you got teams from all over the country. There's over 300 teams that try to get into the NCAA Division I men's tournament every single year. And, of course, there's 50 states. So, looking at this as a logistical nightmare, because once they're there, they're in the bubble. But the question is, will they have enough time to get, to do what they need to? I mean, you look at the fact that Selection Sunday's on the 14th. The ACC tournament, for example, ends on the 13th. And Selection Sunday's on the 14th. And then the first four plays on March 18th. So it's not like teams can all quarantine for 2 weeks after their tournaments and then be ready for the NCAA tournament. In the case of the ACC and some of these other leagues out there, they're going to have, 3 days, 4 days to switch around, 5 days to switch around. So, I think the reality of it all is they're going to have consistent, accurate testing. And I would venture to say they might have to test some of these people every day. They might have to test them after their conference tournament, before the NCAA tournament. But, like you said, a logistical nightmare, because there's no 2-week break between conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament. So the reality of it all is this is a giant roll of the dice that we're going to have here in America. And I mean, I think that's really all we can call it, is we're rolling that dice in Vegas hoping that it comes up what we need.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I have heard, they are gonna test the individuals every day while they're in Indy. And the good thing about doing it in Indianapolis in one location, as opposed to it being, like a normal year all over the country, is that you do get to follow one set of state guidelines in regards to whatever they're doing. And I guess, Indy might be a little more open than New York, for example, and they're able to do some different things. I've also heard that, with testing the players every day, instead of, to reduce contact tracing, if someone may test positive, instead of anybody that came into contact with that person being contact traced, something they might be able to do is just pull that individual. And if everybody keeps testing every day and keeps getting negative, the contact tracing might not come into play as much. These are all things I've heard. I won't quote me on any of these, but, it does make sense if they do have a testing protocol where they do test every day. Why can't they pull the individual and keep the operation moving if everybody keeps testing negative? I think is something I have heard. But like I said, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know if that's the best decision, but those are things I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, in testing every day, I mean, obviously this makes sense, but the question becomes what we're saying. If there is a case where something comes up, what do you do? Do you hold the entire round? Do you, so everybody's playing on the same schedule? Do you let all the games play that can go off? How do you handle it? Because, I mean, God forbid, 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams. It's just the reality of the fact that to think that every one of these games is going to go off without a hitch would be a very questionable thing, which I think would bring up a lot of concerns of people saying, are they really contact tracing? Do they really care? Are they really testing? Because, I mean, if every single game gets played without an issue, I think it's going to make a lot of people scratch their heads as to how that's possible after, like your father said earlier, he's had over 160 schedule changes in one conference by itself.
Yeah, that's why it'd be really, like you said, it'd be really tough to believe that this tournament goes on without any issues. Because, like you said, every week there's an issue or a cancellation in the regular season. So, like you said, to believe something like this is possible is tough to believe. But we'll see. The NBA did a good job. But then again, they were in a real bubble, and I'm sure their capabilities were really good to make that operation happen. Not to say the NCAA doesn't have the same, but like you said, it's just tough to believe with all the postponements we've had this year.
And navigating through that, for the people that don't know, let everybody know what games you get to officiate and how your schedule works, kind of who you're connected to.
Or these.
So yeah, I work.
Good thing they're sold
I work
literally everywhere business is done.
The officiating
I'm pretty sure you can buy them at a bank.
And the leagues that work in that league are the Big Ten, the Mid-American.
Hi everyone, I'm Michaela Chester. Today we're looking at the most heartbreaking first-round upsets in recent March Madness history. According to the people
I work majority of my games, the America East, Horizon, Metro Atlantic, and Mid-American. This past weekend, I was fortunate enough to work some playoff games in America East.
Upsets since 2014.
I had Albany and
Here's
New
how we'll
Jersey
do the
Institute
ranking.
of Technology
We're
on
using
Saturday,
only first-round games.
and then yesterday
because in the first
I had
round,
Albany play Hartford. And it was cool to work some playoff basketball because, we've been working in empty gyms the whole year, and yesterday was still empty, but it had a different feel to it, when the loser's season is going to be over with. There was some life in the gym, and it was fun to work the game and kind of feel that atmosphere a little bit yesterday.
Well, yeah, and seeing that, kind of being in this situation where you're an official right now and you don't have fans, in these places, what has that been like for you? I mean, you don't have people booing you and questioning your call. So, I mean, how have you dealt with that? I would think that, trying to find a positive and a glass half full in all of this, not being criticized verbally, in the run of play where you almost want to put earmuffs in and whatever. I mean, bring me into that, being an official in a season where there's no fans.
At first, it definitely felt weird. My first game of the year was at Michigan State, and it was my first time working at Michigan State, and I would have never thought, my first time working in a big time arena like that with Coach Izzo, that it would have been an empty gym. It's just not how I pictured that going. But with the fans not being, at first it was weird. It felt like a scrimmage. The life wasn't there. Teams have to do their best to create their own energy, whether it's the kids on the bench clapping or, chanting or whatever they're doing on their bench to kind of bring some life in the gym. But, I think the referees miss the fans a lot because at the end of the day, we really don't care what they're saying. They say some funny things or they get on you. But what they do is they kind of muffle the coaches who say the things that you really don't want to hear. And now that there's no crowd noise, some of those things the coaches that say that you might not have normally heard are easy to hear, and the whole gym can hear them. Yeah. And, sometimes maybe we have to give a technical foul that in a normal year we wouldn't have had to do. So I think across the board we miss the fans. Everybody obviously does, but it's weird, to try to get life in these gyms without the crowds and the students.
Yeah, and speaking here with Mike Hitz Jr. on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. I mean, you bring it up, it's sad not having the fans there, and it's strange, but I was just going to ask you about the technical thing because we can hear everything. I mean, I've heard officials talk to players clearly, when I'm in the dome, and and I've heard that official go, he's gone over to a guy and going, "Hey, I told you to knock it off 3 minutes ago. Knock it off." I mean, you can hear these things. So, I guess you kind of answered my question, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the technical foul side of things because now when a coach says something under his breath to you, I mean, you can hear it now. It might echo a little bit.
Yeah, and going into the year, we kind of anticipated that would happen, And, we were told, like, we can't have rabbit ears. We still got to, it's a competitive game. Coaches want to win, and I get their competitiveness. But it's really the things that they kind of yell, the stuff under their breath I don't necessarily care about. It's the loud, like, things that, the whole gym can hear now, where normally a little yell kind of could get muffled. Now, like, that's a foul, or, that everyone hears it. The other coach hears it, even the kids, sometimes when they make a big play, like when they dunk on a kid, for example, in a crowded gym, and they say, like, whatever they say, you can kind of run the other way and no one hears it. Yeah. Now when they tell a kid whatever they say, it's the other coach hears it. It's hard to turn a blind eye to now, and it stinks, because we like big plays too, and we get why the kids get excited about them, but it's an optics thing, and we gotta enforce sportsmanship and all that stuff, and it's tough to say we didn't hear it when no one's in the gym now.
How would you describe yourself as an official? Every official's got a different way about them. How would you describe yourself as an official?
How would I describe myself? I would just describe myself as, I like, I obviously we all do. We try to get our plays correct and be consistent throughout the game. But, I'm not a very, like, coaches. Some guys like to talk to coaches more than others. I'm more of I speak when spoken to, and I just like to answer questions. I don't like to dive too in, because there's a chance you can stick your foot in your mouth. So, I just like to, if a coach has a question and they ask respectfully, I'll do my best to answer it. Something referees say is we respond to questions, and we try not to respond to statements, because usually, when someone makes a statement at you, it puts us in a tough spot. It's kind of confrontational, and we kind of try to turn away from those. But, communication is a big part of officiating. Coaches want explanations. They want to understand plays, and that's something that we all work hard at, getting better at.
And that's the thing, you kind of have to know, who you are and how to deal with stuff. How would you say coaches are more often than not? I mean, in general, and then maybe this year, do you feel like coaches have stayed exactly the same in the run of the game? Have they been more understanding? When you're on the court, does it feel like nothing's changed and there isn't a pandemic? How would you describe it?
I would say, the games kind of feel the same, I would say, in terms of the competitiveness and how the coaches, are acting, because they still want to win. It's not like this season doesn't mean anything, so they're still just as competitive and fiery. I'd say one of the difficult things about this season, as to normal seasons, the way the schedule works, you're able to the season's more spread out, and you might see coaches less times. So therefore, when you see a coach less times, I think there's less of a chance for you to, because they keep stats. I mean, if you go to a place 5 times and they're 1-4, some coach might think you're the reason. So the way the schedule works, a lot of these weekends, you have the same team 2 days in a row. And like anything else, we work in a high pressure environment. So, tensions are high. So I think, seeing the same coach more than you would in a normal year kind of makes it tough down the stretch when you've had so many situations where you might have been confrontational, or, had plays they didn't like, or, have talked to them so many times. It's things like that, when the season winds down, can get kind of difficult.
And your dad, before I let you go, speaking here with Mike Hitz Jr., your dad, I asked him what he thought was the toughest call or the most argued call. What would you say, for being on the floor yourself, is the one that maybe, you said you only speak when spoken to, the one that most coaches want to talk to you about?
I'd say the the coaches most want to talk about is, a lot of people, the block charge play is a tough play. With the defender trying to get legal, or was he moving? Was he in the restricted area arc? There's a lot of, plays like that when bodies go to the floor, we generally want whistles on, and, it's, even from a viewer standpoint, it could be tough to understand the play because, you still can be moving and take a charge, and, viewers they probably think we're just flipping a coin half the time, but there is some logic behind what we're doing. But I technically don't think that's the hardest play to referee. The hardest play for me is those out of bounds plays where there's two hands and it's tip and it goes out of bounds. Those are hard because they happen so quickly, and you're kind of just, it's such an instinctive reaction to make that call. But, fortunately with, 2 minutes left in the game, we can go to the monitor when it's tough and get those plays right, which is helpful to us.
And for you, Mike, social media, you grew up around it, it. When your dad was an official, it wasn't a thing. And, for a lot of his career, he never had to deal with it. What can you say about how you deal with social media? The fact that a fan can criticize you during the game, and then after the game, and then 3 days after, and then 3 months after, and then a year after. What are your thoughts on social media and also on having thick skin to be able to handle in the arena, but also the fact that now with social media, these opinions can follow you home and bother you if you let it. So how do you deal with it?
Obviously, like you said, I grew up with social media, and I do think it's kind of like a crucial, part of life. It's a good way to stay connected with, friends and whatnot, but it's also, and when you're in a position, I guess, like an official, where eyes are on you, it also allows people to, express their opinions on you. And fortunately, I think at the really high level, the Power 5 conferences, the guys that work on TV a little more than I do, they'll probably, their mentions on Twitter will be a little higher than what mine would be. But I see them, and I think, at that point, you just got to realize that people are fans and they're going to say stupid things. Even down the end of my dad's career, Twitter was a thing, and I would search my dad's name, and some of the stuff is actually pretty funny, but fortunately for him, he doesn't even really know what Twitter was. So even if it would bother him, he would never see it. It was actually a funny tweet one time. I think he was at the Big Ten tournament his last year, and someone took a picture of him eating at the bar by himself. And someone said, the only good call Mike Kitts made all week was ordering the buffalo chicken wing dip from Scotty's. And there was a picture of him on Twitter. So some of the stuff's funny, but I think, at a certain point, like, you just turn an eye to it. I know a lot of the big refs, there's even fake Twitters of, Ted Valentine. And at the end of the day, they're funny, but if you're going to be a referee and referee those games, you already have pretty thick skin. So something like that, I'm sure, doesn't bother those guys.
No, and I can definitely say you got to have the thick. Where did your thick skin come from?
I think probably my dad. Growing up playing sports, he was pretty tough on me. Yelling at me when I made errors in baseball or didn't hustle back on defense. So I'm used to catching a little heat, and so he kind of got me ready for that.
That coming here from Mike Kitts Jr. Mike, final piece here for you. You're going to get to put me on the hot seat in just a second, but right before that, I asked your dad this question. I'm going to flip it back to you. Best advice you've ever gotten from your dad, your sister, and shout out to mom for your mom as well. Best piece of advice you got from each of them individually.
Oh, that's tough. You're putting me on the spot right now. I guess my dad, we do talk the most, and obviously we share the refereeing thing. One of his best pieces of advice is, especially, on the court, but it relates to life too, is, always go with your gut, because even times that you don't, whether it's on the basketball court or off the court, you always regret that not going with your gut instinct. And that's something I try to do in both work and outside in life. My mom, some good advice. My mom's just such a good person. So, she's just always taught me to, respect others and, do the best at whatever I'm doing. And, like I said, treat people the right way. My mom is someone who does that. And I think she got that from my grandmother and my aunt. They're all just such good people. And, I look at them, and if I could be half as a good a person as they are, then I think I'm doing a pretty good job. So that's where I'd go with my mom. And then my sister, I don't know if she's ever really gave me advice, but, something I do envy from her is that she's a really hard worker, and I don't know if she's listening right now, but I don't tell her enough that she is. And, everyone's really proud of her for what she's doing in med school. I mean, she's been in school for what it feels like to be an eternity. So we're all ready for her to be a doctor, and we're all proud of her. So I hope she's listening.
Well, I'm sure that they all appreciate those very, very kind words coming from Mike Kitts Jr. for his dad, his mom, and his sister today on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Last piece here for you. As promised, you get to put me on the hot seat. Officials never get to do this. Coaches and players never get to do this. To flip the microphone and put somebody else in the chair. So, Mr. Kitts, I am now going to put myself in the hot seat. You can ask me about sports. You can ask me about life. You can ask me about literally anything. As an official, I'm giving you the chance to put someone else on the hot seat. You got 3 questions. You can ask me anything in the world you want whenever you're ready.
All right. How'd you get into broadcasting? I guess is something I should already know, but I've never asked you this.
Well, I've always been a storyteller.
Yeah.
And when I was 5 years old, my dad's word processor, which is sitting in my office, is, I have that. It was a giant typewriter, super heavy, had a little tiny screen on it, and you could type and see what you were typing, which was like a cool, it was a cool typewriter because you could see it before it came out. And I started writing stories when I was like 5.5. And I've always had a big imagination, my lord, so big. I feel like I could give Disney ideas. And, to me, I always loved bringing people together. I always tried to be everybody's friend, like nice to everybody. And so for me, I think I got into this because I wanted to make the world a better place, a smaller place. I wanted to show people that good people exist. I wanted those good people to find each other so that we could battle life together. And I wanted to tell everybody's story, good, bad, and indifferent, because everybody's got a story to tell. And I just wanted people to feel heard. I wanted them to feel loved. I think a common misconception of broadcasters is that we like to hear ourselves talk, and that's why we have a show.
Mm-hmm.
I want other people to talk and tell their stories. And yeah, I interject. And, today I talked about how you and I ad-lib, and I put my life in there and I let people know about me. But I think it's important to understand that, at least from my perspective as a broadcaster, I'm here to tell stories and I'm here to bring people together. And, I think it speaks volumes that a lot of my friends are people that I interviewed, and that's how we met. And so, I feel that there's something to that. And I mean, honestly, I would just like the world to see that there's good people out there, that everybody should be heard, and that, in my opinion, there is a God that watches over us all, and no matter how bad it gets, it's always going to get better.
Very cool. That's a good answer. I like that. But so I got 2 more.
2 more.
All right. So since we talked about food and going out to eat, what's your favorite restaurant around Syracuse?
I don't like answering this question because I work with a lot of them. But
All right, maybe we'll narrow it down to a genre. So you have to pick what's your favorite Italian? Because that's kind of my favorite.
Okay, that's fair. I think, there's only like one like real deal Italian. I mean, there's a bunch of places I work with that have pizza that are in different cities, but in towns. But I would say Avicoli's. I mean, Avicoli's has the best veal parmesan. So, I mean,
they have some good greens too. I'm a big fan of Utica greens, and theirs are pretty good.
So you got Mike Hitz Jr. shouting out Avicoli's for Utica greens. I'm shouting him out for. I really, really like their veal parmesan. I love their margarita pizza, and also the wings there. I would have to say that I got to get some more here soon. But yeah, I really, really love the veal parmesan sub because I don't trust anybody to make me veal, but I trust Avicoli's, and I spoke about it so much a few months ago, and they're like, yeah, it's like the weirdest thing. We're doing really good. But we've sold more veal than we've ever sold. And I was like, well, I'm taking at least 1% credit for that because I talked about it like 3 times a week. But I would say, if you never had veal, get it there. If you've had it, get it there. Corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, Avicoli's, 315-622-5100, myavicoli's.com. I would just do it. But yeah, I mean, the more I talk about it, the more I'm super duper hungry right now. So
that sounds good. That could be a potential landing spot for me tonight. So, yeah, that sounds good. I guess my last question would be, when you're not broadcasting, what are some other hobbies you take part in?
I love that. I would say when I'm not broadcasting, I love going to the movies. I've realized I cannot date a woman who does not like going to the movies. I previously had married a woman who did not like going to the movies, and we are not married anymore. So That's not why, but I love the movies. Again, I'm a storyteller, and and screenwriting something that I've worked on before. And I would love to screenwrite professionally. I've acted before. I'm trying to continue to do that. So, I love the movies. So I would say going to the movies. I would say, walking, my steps are important to me. And so I would say being active, walking, doing that stuff. I love Disney. I would say going to Disney as often as I can during the year. Going to the movies, I sing, so I would say music is a big part of my life. And I love to write, and I love to draw. So I kind of have like my hand in a lot of places, but any type of artistic work, I guess I would say, because I consider each day an open canvas, and I feel that you have to be very careful about what you paint.
Very cool. That's a good answer as well. I'm glad I got to hear some more things about you.
So that coming from Mike Hitz Jr. I hope the next time I see you in a restaurant, we're having dinner together, sir. And
that'd be great.
and that'll be on a day where we'll tell the girlfriend to stay at home, and you and I'll get in the car and fly by the seat of our pants and figure out a place to eat. But I please give her my best and to the family. But I appreciate you as always, and the Kitts family has been incredible to me, and I just very much thank you for all that you do. I thank you for being one of the officials out there doing a thankless job. I want to say thank you for doing that job. Thank you for navigating and putting your health and everything on the line. And, now more than ever, I just feel that it's important to tell people they're appreciated. So you are, your family is, and I'm so very thankful and glad that your father is okay with everything he had to go through with this virus. And I just look forward to the Kitts family excelling in everything that they do. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you soon.
I appreciate the kind words, and thank you for having me on the show. It was a good time, so thank you.
All right, man. Well, listen, take care of yourself. Be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, man.
Take care.
Later.
That coming from Mike Hitz Jr. here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. So I appreciate him so very much for being a part of the broadcast. We'll take our final step aside of the show and get you set after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecabal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpassnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way to the Millhouse Market all throughout the week. And make sure Tuesday through Sunday, their drive-up window is available to you. So make sure you make your way over there for that. They are also open on weekends for their bistro indoor restaurant. And, of course, during the week, you can go inside to their general store with local products from local companies. We appreciate them so very much for all that they do. Closed on Mondays and open Tuesday through Sunday, Tuesday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Download the app at the Apple app or Google Play Store for the Millhouse Market. There you will have everything from their salads to their quinoa bowls, their rice bowls, their homemade breads and desserts, and of course, those pizzas and the sandwiches that are named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski. The Mill House Market, truly worth the drive every time, bonding to our taste buds, bonding to our community, and bonding to our hearts by giving us something amazingly local and amazingly caring, and every single day putting that extra effort into it. Even when they're crazy busy, those sandwiches look like they've all been put together individually, delicately, and with a whole lot of care for every person that comes through the drive-up window. Not everybody can say that. Millhouse Market can. That is why they're worth the drive every time to 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. With that being stated, I want to welcome you all back inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and I want to thank Mike Kitts and Mike Kitts Jr. for joining the show today, making it official, jumping into March here on March 1st, 2021, making it official with two officials, the coordinator of officiating, that being Mike Kitts, and an official in Mike Kitts Jr. I also want to give a shout out to the rest of the Kitts family, to Angela, to Sarah, and to everybody that we spoke about today. And I want to thank you all for tuning in inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', giving you the list of topics for the day and the people coming onto the show. We have a great week set up for you this week. I'm excited about it. Excited to bring you all the guests that we're going to have. Excited to bring you the ingredients to success brought to you by Avicoli's, as well as the annoying moment of the week brought to you by Carvel DeWitt. LEAD, which stands for Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero with my co-host Juanita Ward. And, of course, to name the top dog of the week, brought to you by Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. So, with that being said, tune in live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, MixLR.com /WakeUpCallDT, and of course, WakeUpCall.DT.com. So make sure you're tuning into Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and I appreciate you so much for that. You can also search our archives on Stitcher, as well as TuneIn, Spotify, MixLR, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and YouTube as well, searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or Wake Up Call DT. And of course, a big thanks to our beautiful, wonderful partners here in Central and Upstate New York, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Avicoli's, where you can use the promo code online to get 10% off of all your online orders at myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Use the promo code AVS10. That's AVS10 online. Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Millhouse Market, Honda City of Liverpool, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Go to maandpazpopcorn.com from any one of the 50 states and use the promo code DT20. That's DT20 for 20% off all of your online orders. You can also get 20% off for in-store pickup, but you have to go to Ma and Pa's right up here. Right there. There. There it is. Daniel. There it is. So maandpazpopcorn.com. Go to maandpazpopcorn.com. Use the promo code DT20 for in-store pickup or delivery. You can get 20% off as long as you order at maandpazpopcorn.com. Use the promo code DT20. With that being said, have a fantastic day. And to Mike Kitts Jr., thank you. To the Kitts family, thank you. Keep working hard. Angela, my best to you. Sarah, my best to you in med school. And God bless to everybody out there. Stay strong, everyone. Stay positive. Stay well. And find us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. I'll talk to you all soon. God bless. No stress. Do your best. Be well.